This is Paul. Yeah. Um, there's this faith versus Trump. Yes. Reverend William J. Barter. And the religious leader at the front of the opposition. I had a little question for those that are of the faith. In the Cairo Center for Religious Rights and Social Justice. This concept of having to manage your own benevolence funds. Yeah. I had talked to some of these organizations that churches have been giving their donations to that do help out with the first month's rent with electricity or other bills. In fact, water seems to be very expensive. I recently was reminded how expensive water is, and I try to be somewhat conservative in my use of water. Yes. But as the guy that has documented my want to replace 2 trillion gallons of fresh water a year, I get concerned about the fixed expenses of those that are on a very limited budget. Could you get me the employees of every water district again? Now, I know in the family when you first came to find out, fish are very concerned about water consumption. It's almost like a fish out of water shouldn't be on land. Pooch. But I'm one of these that said, well, I do have the technology to make water almost free to every American. Now, for those on fixed income not having that monthly water bill would make a big difference. They feel like, well, shoot, if I don't have to pay for it, I'd flush the toilet 50 times a day. But for those that are on a fixed bill budget plan that will shower billions of dollars of tax breaks on the wealthy while effectively raising taxes. Um, there was what was known as the manifesto. These documents where evangelicals sign certain things where all of them agree about something. Yes, we were attending a church at Medical Lake Community Church, a really nice church when we lived in Airway Heights, and we'd go to a Bible study and found out about how all these religious leaders had all decided about their evangelical views about. Now, I just wanted to know, okay, don't argue with me about this. Don't argue. I'd like to know the actual government documents that religious leaders have signed as a body of believers that think that the homeless shouldn't have a place to sleep. And even if you are a church and you can allow for tenting on your private property, a lot of churches say, well, that will kill the grass. And I realize the harm that will happen to the lawn if you allow for a tent to be there. You could put it up at night and take it down in the morning so it wouldn't affect the actual growth of the grass. Yeah. Then I realized the water usage. Could you give me the actual water usage of every church or denomination that has signed any actual government document? I did some research about those religious leaders throughout the United States that have been to prayer breakfasts, where they thought, well, we are the religious leaders of the various churches and denominations of this great nation. But they decided to give the benevolence funds of their individual denominations and congregations to another benevolence fund parachurch organization to administer according to their policies, thereby obstructing any homeless person of, well, if you're not renting a place, we're not giving you any. Now, these religions, rights, and social justices, yes. Now, there used to be a House Speaker, Paul Ryan, but I guess he retired. Yeah. Is he writing a book about that? Could you find out exactly what book deal Paul Ryan? Now, when you get elected to office, is it possible evangelicals account for 40% of Trump's winning vote tally? Now, what if it would be against the actual laws of this nation to allow for anybody to manage the congregation's donations, as in an offering, a tithe to the Lord? Because when I gave, and I'm a giver, okay, I have like, my anointing is a little different than a lot of Christians. I'm very perceptive, kind of like a revivalist, that if I could get on a stage and attract an audience. Yes. I'm big into signs and wonders. I really like to see the glory of God flow. But I'm one of these that likes to make that money too. Lawsuits, there's a lot of money in them. I'd like to be tithing today, and obstructing my rights and abducting my sons is kind of disabled my right to give because of my intellectual ability, my innovations, as well as the obstruction of the use of the judicial system of the United States. And then I'm an encourager. It really frustrates me as an individual when I hear somebody say, well, I'm really concerned about the price of water. Not that I don't realize the drought conditions that Americans are experiencing and the increases of the actual water cost. To just flush a toilet is probably $1 a time. But we oftentimes miss the fact that when I'm the individual that has documented the ability to provide very inexpensive to America. Why don't you get me all those signatures of all those Catholics, Episcopalians, Muslims, Jewish, and Unitarians? The disciples' public presence. Seems like they're always signing documents about how they're going to do something of significance. And then get me all the parachurch organizations that manage the actual tithes and offerings of those that are members of churches, so that the indigent, the pauper, the homeless, the transient invitee that needs to be more concerned about the actual price of water, that happens to be the innovator of what could cause a decrease in the cost of water. Now, I know it sounds mean of me to sue churches. It's almost like anti-Christian. But I'm thinking that I'm going to sue a lot of churches. Now, you decided to go the way of those that are dickheads, that you thought you'd give the actual tithes and offerings of the congregation to a parachurch organization so as you could pay for the way. And then all the church leaders and all the denomination heads decided they'd all sign these documents and make it public record. Now, I've actually looked. I'm a little upset at Christianity right now. I'm calling churches trying to find some place to put a tent so as to keep my friendship. Now, I know Jerry Falwell. And Franklin Graham, I'm sorry to hear about your father passing away a few years ago.